This has got to be one of the most risky things I've ever done in my life, and I've done a few risky things over the years.
A bit of correction, we got a long run in speed, but a bit of correction.
Plan is that we're going to fly 2 aeroplanes in formation through this beautiful hangar.
I've never seen or heard of a formation flight through a hangar before, so we're hoping it will be a world first.
I can remember when I joined my first flying club at the age of 15, and there was a hangar there that we all wondered if you could fly through. You know, it's human nature, isn't it? I think instinctively we're programmed to compete. We all want to channel that in different directions, and just so happens we like flying aeroplanes.
This is our 17th year of flying as a pair. Some of the bits of the run into this building, I think I'm using every bit of the 17 years of experience.
I reckon I can tell from a radio call what he's thinking, and you can't put a value on that. If you're doing something like this, you need the utmost trust in each other.
I wouldn't consider this sort of operation with anybody else than Bonhomme.
You've seen the old footage of guys climbing into biplanes and then deliberately crashing into a barn. You know, that's barnstorming to the extreme, isn't it? We're a long way away from that, but the sentiment is there, I think, and the kind of romance of combining that risk awareness but doing something spectacular.
Immediately after the First World War, really, is when it started, and it had a load of extremely accomplished pilots with nothing to do, and they thought, right, well, all we know is how to fly airplanes, and off they went, literally storming into people's barns and putting on a little air show around the country. So it's a sort of tribute to those guys that almost 100 years later, people are still doing that sort of thing.
You have 2 aeroplanes flying around together, and they look as though they're doing the same thing. Actually, the 2 jobs are very, very different. My job is to fly as smooth as I possibly can, think 2, 3, 4, 5 manoeuvres ahead, so that I don't surprise Steve. That's a very bad thing.
Bonhamme's the leader, I'm the wingman, so my job really is just to pin my aeroplane to Bonham, making sure that I also leave myself in a position to get through the door next to him. I'm going to have to split my attention between formating conventionally, but also looking at the approaching 2,000-ton structure. What could possibly go wrong? I'd rather not think about it, really.
Normally when you're on an airfield you're just worried about the plane landing and taking off, but with this, the chance of collision in the hangar, obviously it's quite tight, so we're trying to make sure we've got the right kit on that standby ready to get them out if anything does happen.
Nobody would say we know everything, we certainly don't. Every time I fly I learn something, but if anybody is ready for this sort of thing, it's probably Bonham and maybe me.
Ultimately, if we get it wrong, we hit a building. You know, you can't dwell on it, but I think it's incredibly healthy to consider the worst case. It's vital to have somebody who's on the same wavelength and can spot for you on the ground, because, you know, the hangar, when we're 2 kilometres away, the hangar's a tiny little grey box, and you've got no idea what's going on in there.
It definitely has some inherent risk, but I think it's all been assessed. I have flown with them quite a few times, and brilliant pilots.
Fire truck's clear again.
Foxtrot 1, this is Ed. Confirm you are clear of the active.
All left, well, line up and go. Okay, stand by for smoke, Steve, and Matadors are rolling. Smoke on. Turning right. Okay, Matadors holding south, Ed, if you can let us know when the hangar is hot.
Matadors, Ed, that's copied. We'll keep you advised.
If hangar's cold, I'll give you a call when it's good.
We were 500 feet over the road there, so all good.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's no problem.
Okay, hangar 2 clear. Cheers, Jim. Yeah, half one. Film clear.
Matadors from Ed, are you ready?
Hey, Sam.
Matadors, Ed, you're cleared in hot. Hangar is clear.
Cleared in hot, Matadors turning final for the hangar. Good. Flight correction now. Okay. Matador's final for the hangar.
As we exited after the first one through together, you know, we looked across at each other to see that all the bits were still there, and they were, so great sigh of relief, really. So yeah, marvellous.
Pulling up and seeing Steve still there is, you know, great sense of relief, but no, very good, great fun. You know, and actually slightly bizarre really to find myself flying through a building with my mate. It is absolutely bizarre, but proof that our planning has worked. So.
Hey, still alive. All right. There's nothing quite compares with the feeling when you're sort of 200 metres before the hangar. You've got Bonhomme's aeroplane here, you've got a hangar approaching here, the ground is here, and you've got no options. You know, you are completely hemmed in. All you've got to do is stay there, check that you're aligned with this gap through the hangar, which is not very big, and press on. I couldn't think of anything that I'd done in the past that I feel is quite as risky as this, but great fun.